As US President Donald Trump says, his upcoming summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will be terrific. His pick for Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says preparations for the big meeting are proceeding well. Backtracking from a gain in the previous month, South Korea's export prices drop almost 1% on month in March on the back of the strengthening Korean won. Plus, will he or won't he? President Trump backs away from his strong words on Syria, saying airstrikes may not happen. It comes as France's leader claims to have proof Syria launched the suspected chemical attack that sparked the crisis. With exactly 2 weeks to go until the highly anticipated Inter-Korean summit, South Korea's presidential office has confirmed another meeting between working-level officials from the two Koreas will take place early next week. They'll continue negotiating the details on protocol, security, communication and media coverage for the April 27th summit. A senior Blue House official relayed the information this morning, but did not disclose the exact date of the meeting. He also confirmed high-level delegations from the two Koreas will also convene again next week. That's expected to take place on Wednesday. Regarding the denuclearization roadmap being negotiated between the US and North Korea, the same official said the South Korean government has its own solution without elaborating. US Secretary of State nominee Mike Pompeo had his Senate confirmation hearing on Thursday, and Pompeo said he was still firm in not loosening sanctions on Pyongyang until North Korea takes steps towards denuclearization, but added he is hopeful that it could be achieved through diplomacy. EG1 with more.
Secretary of State nominee Mike Pompeo said North Korea should not expect rewards from talks with the United States until steps toward irreversible denuclearization are taken. At his Senate confirmation hearing on Thursday, Pompeo, who is currently serving as CIA director, said U.S. President Donald Trump and his administration will make sure not to repeat past mistakes regarding North Korea, suggesting Washington will maintain maximum pressure and sanctions until Pyongyang takes irreversible, permanent steps to denuclearize. He also added that he is not optimistic that North Korea will agree to dismantle its nuclear program, and that in the past negotiations, the U.S. and the world had eased sanctions too quickly. However, unlike what many had widely viewed before, Pompeo said he is not advocating regime change in North Korea. And the hawkish hardliner also added that though Pyongyang's denuclearization is a tall order, he is hopeful that Trump can achieve it through sound diplomacy. On the same day, President Trump said meetings are being set up right now between him and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, and that he thinks it'll be terrific. Adding that his team will be going in with a lot of respect, Trump said they'll see what happens. He also thanked China for its help in trying to set up a meeting with Kim to resolve North Korea's nuclear issue. The leaders of North Korea and U.S. are to have their historic first-ever bilateral summit in May or early June. 이지원, Arirang News.
So, with the Inter-Korean summit now a fortnight away, South Korea's top security advisor, Chung has been holding talks in Washington with his US counterpart, John Bolton. The allies are looking to closely coordinate their strategies to squeeze the best result out of their respective summits with Pyongyang. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Thursday's meeting at the White House was Chung Eui-yong's first with John Bolton since the U.S. National Security Advisor took office, and his second in the past month, as he traveled to Washington in March, shortly after his meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang. According to a spokesperson for the White House National Security Council, Chung and Bolton committed to continue coordinating closely in preparation for their summits with North Korea. This comes as Seoul expressed its desire to establish a direct communication channel between Chung and Bolton to closely sync the allies' preparations for their respective meetings with Kim Jong-un. Chung stressed the importance of his meeting with Bolton before departing for Seoul.
The success of both the Inter-Korean Summit and the North Korea-US Summit is important, so we had a wide-ranging exchange of views on various ways to make them a success and peacefully achieve denuclearization of the Korean peninsula.
President Trump's appointment of Bolton, a well-known hawk, has raised concerns in Seoul that the U.S. could consider military action against the North if the Trump-Kim summit goes badly. Bolton, a former U.S. ambassador to the UN, recently argued for a preventive strike on North Korea, even though he stressed that it's not his favorite option. Bolton is reported to have also met on Thursday with his Japanese counterpart, Shataro Yachi. Meanwhile, Cho Yoon-jae, the South Korean ambassador to the U.S., and Susan Thornton, acting U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia, plan to hold regular summit-related meetings from next week. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, the upcoming Inter-Korean Summit will play a pivotal role in laying the foundation for a successful follow-up summit between Washington and Pyongyang. It goes without saying that the Moon and Trump administration's main goal is the regime's eventual denuclearization. Our Lee Jung-yeon takes a closer look at what factors could make this possibility become reality.
The most important issue on the table for the upcoming Inter-Korean Summit is without a doubt the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. Bringing that into focus are Washington and Pyongyang's so-called barter conditions. The U.S. is calling for what's been dubbed CVID, the complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization of North Korea. In return, North Korea will most likely demand CVIG, a complete, verifiable, irreversible guarantee of the regime's survival. In this scenario, actual denuclearization hinges on several factors.
The most important factor is North Korea's intent to denuclearize, because if they bring up unrealistic demands like the complete withdrawal of US forces from the Korean peninsula, which they know is impossible, it would be hard to reach an understanding.
And speaking of withdrawing U.S. forces, experts say North Korea will most likely propose a package deal that includes a security guarantee along with an economic guarantee, such as a softening of sanctions on the regime and economic aid.
Most sensitive, of course, is withdrawal of U.S. force. But there is possible compromising point because 2007, Kim Jong-il accepted the U.S. stationing in South Korea. But the defensive nature of joint military exercise is acceptable to them.
The softening of sanctions is quite possible as long as the regime also shows progress in denuclearization. And as for economic aid, this is also quite feasible through the UN or through the US, normalizing its relations with North Korea.
The last, but certainly not least factor, is whether Washington and Pyongyang will be able to coordinate the method of denuclearization.
North Korea thinks that there should be a step-by-step process. But on the other hand, the US wants to make the denuclearization very quickly, without so many steps.
Experts predict, however, that President Trump would see no quick or easy way forward and would put forth a more realistic suggestion.
I think some other measures President Trump would propose, for example, giving a specific time period during which there should be a denuclearization achieved.
The expert predicts this would be sometime in 2020, around the time of the next U.S. presidential election in which Trump would be running. There are many factors that could affect the possibility of denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, but it all comes down to the leaders of the U.S. and North Korea coming to an agreement, with South Korea's President Moon Jae-in playing the role of mediator in the upcoming summits. Lee Jung-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed his plans to hold talks with President Moon Jae-in in June. The talks that would most likely happen in Moscow, since the 2018 World Cup in Russia starts the same month, would centre on North Korea diplomacy, this according to Reuters, citing Russian state media. South Korea's presidential office of Chung has yet to confirm whether President Moon will travel to Russia for the World Cup. If the summit goes ahead, it would be the third face-to-face meeting between the two leaders. South Korea's defense authorities have decided to wait until the weekend to bring in construction materials and equipment to the site of the THAAD anti-missile system in Seongju County, Gyeongsang-Bukdo province, where residents and activists are protesting the deployment. A number of protesters were injured during clashes with police on Thursday as officers tried to clear the path for trucks to enter the site. Seoul's defense ministry says it will continue talks over the coming days on the next steps after the government pulled police out of the area. The ministry said on Thursday that the materials being delivered are related to basic sanitation for troops stationed at the base and are not related to the construction of THAAD launchers. Now for a look at stories making headlines around the world, and we're going to start with the ongoing unrest over Syria. President Trump has softened his rhetoric on a possible US military assault on the Syrian regime a day after he warned its key ally Russia that, quote, missiles will be coming. For more on this and other international news, let's turn to our Noah Adam. So Adam, what's the latest?
Well, in a series of tweets on Wednesday, President Trump took a more aggressive tone towards Syria and Russia for a suspected chemical attack in a rebel-held area. He said missiles, quote, will be coming in response to the alleged attack, but on Thursday he seemed to be backtracking from those remarks. He tweeted that he never said an attack on Syria would take place, adding it could happen soon or not soon at all. He also held a meeting with his national security team later in the day, but the White House said no final decision has yet been made. President Trump was due to announce sometime on Thursday Washington's response to the suspected attack, evidence of which is yet to be unveiled. US media have quoted Washington officials as saying that a mix of weaponized chlorine gas and sarin may have been used. French President Emmanuel Macron also said he had proof that the Syrian government attacked civilians in Douma, but did not provide further details. France and the UK have said they will back the US if any military action is taken against Syria. Syria and Russia have repeatedly denied such an attack took place. After an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council, Moscow's UN envoy said the US was threatening international peace.
Charter, the threat to international peace and security is a violation of the UN Charter. The immediate priority is to avert the danger of war. But the second priority now is for the OPCW mission to reach Damascus and Douma and to see what's really happening.
A team of experts from the global chemical weapons watchdog was travelling to Syria and will start their investigations on Saturday. It is not yet clear whether Washington and its allies would wait for the results of the OPCW's probe before deciding on a possible strike. In other news, Chinese President Xi Jinping has stressed what he called the urgent need to have a powerful navy. He was speaking on Thursday during an inspection of China's largest maritime drill in the South China Sea. 48 warships, 76 aircraft and more than 10,000 personnel took part in the drill. It was held after Beijing lodged numerous protests against Washington for conducting so-called freedom of navigation operations with US warships sailing near artificial islands built by China. Pope Francis has admitted to making grave errors in the handling of sexual abuse cases in Chile, where he refused to believe a bishop he appointed covered up a sex child abuse case. In an extraordinary public letter on Wednesday, the pontiff said he felt shame for not believing the victims and invited them to Rome so he could beg for their forgiveness. He also summoned Chilean bishops to the Vatican for a crisis meeting, which is slated for next month. Pope Francis has been facing backlash from victims and activists for defending Bishop Juan Barros, a protege of Chile's worst paedophile priest, Reverend Fernando Caradima. Barros is accused of covering up Caradima's sexual abuses despite witnessing them.
Now, South Korea's export prices for March went down from the previous month on the stronger Korean won. According to the Bank of Korea on this Friday, export prices dropped 0.9% on month. The local currency gained 0.7% on month against the greenback in March, but import prices rose for the third consecutive month, up 0.5% on month, despite the won's appreciation and steady oil prices. The central bank attributed the rise to soaring electrode prices, which went up nearly five-fold on increasing demand. The BOK said excluding these prices would result in a fall of import prices. US President Donald Trump has reportedly directed his top trade and economic advisers to take a fresh look at the Trans-Pacific Partnership, an agreement he withdrew from during his first week in office. According to Republican Senator Ben Sasse, President Trump will task National Economic Council Chairman Larry Kudlow and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer to look at re-entering TPP negotiations. Other countries in the pact, including Japan and Canada, have moved forward on the trade agreement, recently signing the TPP 11, which excludes the U.S. Now, Korea's ruling and main opposition parties remain in a standoff over how to revise the nation's decades-old constitution. With no visible progress being made, the minor blocs are pressing the two sides to get past their political differences and meet halfway for the sake of the country. Park Hee-jun with the details.
Minor parties want a speedy settlement on the constitutional revision. In a joint statement Thursday, the 바른미래 Party, Party for Democracy and Peace, and Justice Party demanded that the ruling Democratic Party and main opposition Liberty Korea Party reach a compromise, saying that the important issue of constitutional revision has been stuck in gridlock due to their partisan disputes. They also urged the major parties to present a clear alternative to the current electoral system so that the system can better represent the people. The joint statement called for an agreement on the reform of the electoral system through a political negotiation body that consists of the floor leaders of the parties and their members. Top officials of the minor parties later met Democratic Party floor leader Woo Won-sik and Liberty Korea Party floor leader Kim Song-tae to deliver their message. They proposed establishing a separate council of top representatives from the four floor negotiation blocks to make progress on the constitutional amendments. While Woo welcomed the idea of a new body, he emphasized that the party adheres to the government's bill on reforming the power structure. Meanwhile, Kim turned down the proposal, but said his party will make efforts concerning the electoral system. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
Now, from domestic politics, we're going to switch over to taking a look back at a critical period in Korea's history that actually unfolded in a foreign land. Cha Sang-mi tells us more about Korea's provisional government established some 99 years ago in Shanghai, when Korea was under Japan's brutal colonial rule. Let's take a look.
On March 1, 1919, after months of nationwide protests against Japan's ruthless colonial rule, Koreans declared their country free and independent. With the March 1st movement as a catalyst, Korean independence activists in Shanghai established a provisional government in April the same year, 9 years after Japan forcefully annexed Korea in 1910.
There are at least 8 provisional Korean governments in various regions, both domestically and abroad, among which there were 3 main ones, namely the government in Shanghai, the Hansung government based in Seoul, and the National Council of Korea based in Vladivostok, Russia.
The provisional governments in Korea and Russia were watched closely by Japan, which worked to limit their activity. That prompted the decision in September 1919 to join the 3 main ones together in Shanghai. Experts say the Chinese city was chosen for geopolitical reasons.
Shanghai was an ideal place for the establishment of the provisional government because it was an international city, a commercial and diplomatic hub. Also, it was governed by France at the time, which helped the independence activists carry on their movement out of Japan's immediate sight.
13 years passed in Shanghai, but the provisional government had to keep moving to different Chinese cities like Changsha and Guangzhou to evade the constant threat of discovery and the Sino-Japanese War. The final destination was Chongqing, where they stayed till November 1945. The provisional government elected Lee Seung-man as its first president in 1919. An independence activist with a PhD from the United States, he later became the first president of South Korea in 1948. The last president of the provisional government was nationalist Kim Gu, who thought the only way to take back Korea was through armed force. After the independence was won, Kim Gu fought against the country's looming division until he was assassinated in 1949. Experts say the legacy of the provisional government is the liberal democracy South Korea has today. It paved the way to self-rule for Korea and its people.
9 years after the fall of the Korean Empire and its monarchy in August 1910, the provisional government was proclaimed. And in 1948, the South Korean Constitutional Assembly held on to the principles of the provisional government, which remain in place to this day.
South Korea also owes its official name to the provisional government, the Republic of Korea. Its national anthem, 애국가, also comes from the same period. 차상미, Arirang News.
Good morning. We should have cloudier skies across South Korea, while Beijing will be rainy and cold, but it's sun all the way in Tokyo. Temperatures in the upper parts are pretty much a repeat of yesterday, while the southern regions will have highs 3 to 4 degrees lower than Thursday. So let's take a closer look at today's daily highs. Seoul and Jeju will get up to 19 degrees Celsius, while Gyeongju and Busan will make it to 17 degrees this afternoon. A dry weather advisory is in place for much of eastern parts of the country, including Daegu, Busan, and Gyeongju. But some much-needed rainfall is in the forecast on Saturday to soak the country. So Saturday is shaping up to be a rainy day for most parts of the country, bringing down the temperatures to below average again over the weekend. With that, let's take a look at the international weather for viewers around the world. So most of South Korea will have lots of clouds with pleasant temperature readings. Most of North Korea will have cloudy skies all day today. And as for the rest of Asia, those in Bangkok will need to brace for a severe heat wave under sunny skies well into the weekend. Meanwhile, Sydney will also have a scorcher with an expected high of 33 degrees Celsius under mostly sunny skies. And heading through North America, New Yorkers will notice early summer-like temperatures on Friday and into Saturday. And as for South America, most parts will have a repeat of Thursday's weather conditions. Taking you to Europe, most of Germany enjoyed summery t-shirt weather over past few days, but expect some rain along with scattered thunderstorms. Lastly, to Africa, in Cape Town, there is a chance of a shower or two during the morning hours. And that's all the weather update for now.
Well, it's at this point of the day where we wrap up our newscast. Our next bulletin is coming up at noon, Korea time. So until then, goodbye.
Year 2000, the first Inter-Korean Summit. The leaders